Welcome to eTalks. I am Sami, and today I'll be your moderator. Today we have a very esteemed guest, Professor Michael Goldberg, who has been who is a professor at the University of Rutgers University, and he has two books, two TED Talks, and he's been helping field leaders and financial advisors and insurance agents grow their business for more than 20 years. So we're really lucky to have you. Welcome to eTalks.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you, Sammy, and hello, Miriam, and thank you for creating the opportunity for me to be here on a Saturday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time.
You're more than welcome.
Well, anyway, welcome everybody. My company is Knockout Networking. I do this professionally, although I don't know how professional I'm going to be here. But so Knockout Networking is a speaking and training company. I've been in business for over 20 years. And I provide networking training, keynote speaking, and coaching services. And I have a niche within the insurance and financial services industry. I've been doing this a long time. Adjunct professor at Rutgers, also for over 20 years. Definitely a labor of love. It's really my Mondays. And I continue to do that now, teaching two classes, which is how I know Miriam, who was a student in my class last semester, and why I'm here. You know, I've got some stuff on this slide that I want you to just sort of take note of is the CSP on the left. That's a certified speaking professional. It's an earned designation through the National Speakers Association. I'm a Peloton fanatic. As Sammy mentioned, I've done a couple of TEDx talks. I've written a couple of books. Some of them are posted there. I'm a Jeep aficionado. I drive this big, huge Jeep with big tires and everything. I founded a national networking group called, wait for it, the Networking Group, and adjunct professor at Rutgers. So the reason I'm saying all this and why I have this slide here is it's not really about me. I want you to think about if you were going to deliver a talk to a group and you were going to put a bunch of logos up on a slide that were meaningful to you, that represented communities that you have, what would that look like? Like you might have a Rutgers logo or a Berkeley logo or whatever school you're in, right? But, you might have something representative of your target industry. When you graduate, that you're looking, physics, right? Family, right? So you might have something like that. But it doesn't always have to be business or career. It could be personal stuff. It may be representative of the car that you drive or a club that you belong to or interest. My point is that we all have lots of communities that I don't know if we take advantage of. We're busy texting and pinging and TikToking and everything else, but I wonder if we segment groups that we have, some of our following, and look at them as networking opportunities. So if nothing else, that you walk away from this talk, I'm going to go for about 30 minutes. I'll be as interactive as I can. I want you to just think about how some of my ideas might relate to some of what you might be looking for when you're networking to land an internship or launch yourself into a career. Make sense? So think about those logos. I'm thrilled to be here on a Saturday night. I don't know if I've ever done a talk like this on a Saturday night before, but I guess this will be my first. So thanks, Miriam. That's me again. This is kind of what I do. These are some of my clients. I have a niche within the financial services community with companies like Morgan Stanley and Colonial Life and some of the others that you can read there. And I am a competitive fighter. So the knockout networking thing is kind of authentic. All right, let's jump into it. So one of my favorite graphics here. So there was a student years ago. I'm going to call her Nicole because that was her name. These are Nicole's. This was really Nicole's grades in my Rutgers class. This is a bunch of years ago. And she ended up earning a D in the class. Now, it's a public speaking class. And as Miriam would probably attest to, it's not an easy class. It's not a layup by any stretch. There's a lot that I ask for because I do this professionally. So I ask a lot of the students. But this is a breakdown of Nicole's grades. And this rubric and this grading score might look familiar to you, Miriam. So 60% of the grade in my class, in my public speaking class at Rutgers University, is geared towards presentations. So it's worth 60 points. And exams are 20% or 20 points. Assignments, usually written assignments, are 7. The resume is 3%, and then attendance and participation is 10%. Because if you ain't there, you ain't public speaking. So if you look at the right-hand side, this is what Nicole earned. She got 31.6 out of 60, so call it half. And that's the presentations. She was a good speaker. So she earned a B. She didn't submit a paper. She earned a C. She didn't submit 2 papers. And then she earned 2 Fs. She just didn't show, which never happens. So she only got half of what she could have. Exams, smart cookie, she did pretty well. She got 100 on the midterm and a 95 on the final. Assignment, she did well. The resume, she just simply didn't do. Like a 7 or 8 week project where you walk away with a brand new resume to land a job, and she just didn't do it. 0. And then her attendance was good. So she earned a D. Nicole was outraged, but not as outraged as her parents were. Her parents reached out to me, and I had a Zoom meeting with Nicole and her parents. Talk about awkward. I posted this slide and talked them through it. And the parents were no longer outraged at me. They were outraged at Nicole. Why? Because what didn't Nicole do? She didn't do the work, right? It was all laid out there. She just simply didn't do the work. So the word work is in network, which is what my talk is going to be about, is knockout networking. I'm going to share some of my favorite ideas of how to network. But you have to understand, like in a college class where it's all laid out, you just got to do the work. So I'm going to lay out some ideas, and it's up to you whether you want to do 65% of it, 75% of it, 100% of it, or somewhere in between. Are you with me? Give me a thumbs up. Good? All right.
Sounds awesome.
All right, there's only 6 reasons why we network. Can anybody guess what they are? This will be the interactive part of the show. Only 6 reasons why we network. What are they? You can put them in the chat, or you can raise a hand and come off of mute.
Get to know others.
Miriam should know this. What are the 6 reasons why we network? Yeah, opportunities, but what kind of opportunities?
Resources.
To increase, say again?
To find resources.
Yep, to find resource. Yep, so to learn something, to make connections. Good. Other reasons?
To make money.
To make money, right.
To learn.
Learn. Very good, very good. So these are some of my 6 reasons, and you're pretty much nailing them, right? So to generate business, so I run my own business. That's the number 1 reason why I network, is to generate more business, more revenue, which sounds obvious, but here's where the network part comes in, is in terms of generating business, it's about where you're going to go, what are you going to say, and with whom are you going to say it in order to generate that business. Does that make sense? So that's the 1, 2, 3 punch. See what I did with the boxing? To networking. Networking is about where you go, what you say, and with whom. With me? So generating business is one reason why we network. Landing a job is another reason why we network. 76% of those landing interviews in a job, according to Society of Human Resource Management, or SHRM, are doing so through networking. So landing an internship or landing a job. And I love watching that throughout the semester at Rutgers when I'm teaching, is actually watching students land jobs and get in front of the room and share what they did. That's really cool. So generating business, landing a job. 3rd reason why we network is social reasons, right? So like at school, whether it's at Rutgers or Berkeley, wherever it is you are, is you might be networking and making connections there for social reasons. Or maybe you relocate somewhere, you go to a new school, or whatever, right? So social stuff, fun stuff. Somebody said it, learn something, learn about a product, learn about a service, learn about a networking opportunity, a job opportunity. So in terms of learning, where do you need to go? What do you need to say? With whom do you need to say it? 5th reason is to pay it forward, I call it. Paying it forward is helping somebody out without expecting anything in return. So coaching another student, mentoring them, maybe. Maybe doing something fundraising of some sort, right? Working a soup kitchen, whatever it is. So you're putting yourself out there without expecting anything in return. I believe it always comes back in the end. All right, so that's 5. Here's a 6th reason: to solve a very specific problem. Solve a very specific problem. So a story I often share from the stage is that my mom passed away of Parkinson's disease, or complications related to Parkinson's disease, years ago. And my networking was really aimed at different resources to help her out. So to me, these are 6 pretty powerful reasons. And I just want you to think, at least in my mind anyway, is that you can solve almost any problem in life, if you understand what the problem is and you understand where you need to go, what you need to say, and with whom you need to say it. Are you with me? Right, to me, it's just, but that's it. That's the 1, 2, 3 punch. And I live and breathe this stuff. Like I live and breathe when I'm thinking about solving a problem, Where do I need to go? What do I need to say? And with whom do I need to say it? So write that down somewhere. I don't have that on a slide intentionally. Where to go, what to say, with whom. That's the secret to at least starting to become a good networker. All right. Here are some networking turn-offs. Is ever meet somebody, even at school, they only talk about themselves? That's a big turn-off for me. Like, I don't mind hearing about you as long as you want to hear about me too. Like, it's got to be a two-way street. Never asking questions about you. Ever meet somebody that does that? They don't care. They just rant on. They're pitching a product or service or just what they're up to. They're not listening to what you're saying, or at least it doesn't feel that way. They're looking at their phone instead of paying attention. One of my pet peeves, as Miriam knows. Scanning the room for someone better to talk to. That's one of my favorites. Like, gotta go, better people. Or there's some other, like, turn-offs, right? What are some turn-offs in a networking scenario that you can think of, or something that turns you off in that type of scenario? Post in the chat or mute. Okay, so Miriam, opportunistic only. What does that mean? You can speak freely, Miriam.
Like maybe they have an agenda, but they like that they only care about that, and
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
nothing
Awesome.
like spontaneous will occur in that sense.
Yep, fair enough. You know, like you didn't care what happened this weekend or that sort of thing, right? Good. What else? What's some other networking turnoffs?
Something that has bothered me in the past was when, I mean, it's already mentioned here, when they look at their phone or get distracted by like looking at other people.
Yeah, that's right. That's right, yeah. So there's lots of things that turn us off. So the whole thing is to be weary of that. We can't change everybody, but to be present in ourselves to make sure that we're not doing some of those things, right? That we're being present and that we're being, being good people when it comes to networking and showing up for other people. All right. So it all starts with a mindset. That's Dr. Max from New Amsterdam, one of my favorite shows, by the way. Right, and he said it best. How can I help was kind of his credo. If you don't know who he is or what I'm talking about, you can look him up. But to me, it all starts with how can I help? It's about the give. So these are some areas that really showcase that somebody's a good networker when I first meet them, like upon first glance, is that they're concerned about my health and safety, especially around like the pandemic. This was like a big deal. But is everything good with friends, family, that sort of thing? They're interested in learning about me and what I'm up to. They're in a position to offer help if I need it. They ask questions. They're listening to me. They're interested. They provide ideas and resource, and they're open to making introductions. So this is, again, it's about the give. That's the mindset. And if you're like this, people, at least these types of folks, are going to be attracted to you. They're going to be gravitationally pulled to you, right? Birds of a feather, right? So if you're like this, imagine the people that you're going to attract. Aren't these the types of folks that you would want to network with and speak with and build a community around? Like, of course, right? Because it's going to be very, very collaborative, probably like this group is. All right, so if you opt in networking in ChatGPT, it would say something like this. Process of building relationships and organizations for the purpose of blah, 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 blah. Right? It's very, very general. Okay, here's my definition. I've been speaking about the same definition. It hasn't changed for over 20 years. It's in my book, the whole thing. Is I believe networking is a proactive, although it can be reactive, approach to meeting people with the prospect of learning from and helping them. So it's about learning, helping. I'd like a second helping, learning, helping. That's networking. So I think there's two components that have to be in place to be a good networker, and that's my little footnote there, is I think you have to have a focused communication strategy. I'm going to get into a couple of them tonight. You have to have a targeted network, to make your networking efforts as effective as they can be. And it could be that first slide, those communities that I showed, maybe one or two of those communities could be where you start in terms of your networking, because these are people that you have some common ground with. Make sense? Right, so proactive approach, it can be reactive. It's about learning, helping, because you're focused on learning from and helping other people. They tend to want to learn from and help you back, right? And that's networking. It's a two-way street. It's collaborative. So as I like to say, networking is a we thing, not a me thing, as in you. It's we. So that's the pronoun, we and us. Those are the pronouns as it relates to networking. How can we help one another? How can we be resources for one another? That sort of thing. Two different types of networking. There's serendipitous and there's strategic. Anybody want to venture a guess as what the difference is? Anybody other than Miriam? How's that? Difference between serendipitous and strategic networking, you can put it in the chat or come off of mute.
Is strategic more so like towards a certain goal? It's more focused. Is that right?
A little bit. What does the word serendipitous mean?
I'm blanking on
Anybody?
it. I'm
Anybody?
blanking on it. Yeah.
Anybody know what that means? So serendipitous kind of means random, right? Just sort of things happen by fate. There's a movie called, I think, Serendipity, right? You're kind of meeting people. It's like a light kind of romantic comedy type of thing, right? But serendipitous networking is when you meet people by accident and you have a connection with them. You didn't mean to, but you did. Doesn't that happen? Right? So there's serendipitous networking, and then there's strategic networking. That's on purpose with purpose. That's going to the right places, saying the right things, and meeting the right people with purpose on purpose. 1/3 dynamic. Do we connect with everybody that we meet? Definitely not. But doesn't it feel good when we do? When we connect with people and like you had me at hello, like just you had that vibe, like we were meant to meet. I refer to that as the 1/3 dynamic. The reason is because in my experience, if I meet 10 people, let's say at an event, a cocktail party or something, I tend to only really connect with about 1/3 of them. If I really connect, like you had me at hello. So 3 or 4 out of 10. So I refer to that as the 1/3 dynamic. So there's 1/3 of students. There's 1/3 of friends, believe it or not. There's 1/3 of family members. Then there's everybody else. We'll call them 2/3. So really focus on the 1/3ers when it comes to networking. Focus on the people, in most cases, where you have the best connections. So getting back to serendipitous networking for a minute, the serendipitous networking is a meeting a 1/3er by accident. Maybe you're in the produce section of your favorite supermarket shopping, and you just start striking a conversation with somebody, and it's like there's a vibe. That's the 1/3er dynamic. Maybe you've met people like socially like that. Maybe you met your boyfriend, girlfriend, or something. Maybe there's a story, right, where there's serendipitous networking. You didn't mean for it to happen, but it does. All right, there's some rules that I like to talk about. In my book, there's like 23 of them. I'm going to rattle through just these. I'm going to go wicked fast to do this. And then I want to focus on the 3 that I have bolded towards the bottom. So I want you to think of the metaphor of ever go to a public pool and there's rules when you go into the pool, right? No running, no swimming, no fun, those rules. So I wrote them for networking. Right, so I believe that there are rules to that. Can you imagine if those rules were at every job fair or every networking meeting or alumni, right? We'd all be bigger, better at networking. So here are some rules. Some of my favorites is get in the habit of sharing personal stories. Sammy, nice to meet you. Can I share a quick story? But keep it short and sweet to the point, right? And this way, and now related to that person. Have you had that experience? And now I'd want Sammy's story. What a great way to break the ice. So I refer to how I tell a story through PSA, or point story application. Want to hear a quick story of how I just embarrassed myself on my way over here? Point. Story. Tell your story. Application. Has that ever happened to you? Or isn't that funny? Do you have a similar story? Point story application. Get good at telling stories. Their current professional stories or career-related stories or school stories. Discuss solutions, ideas, not products. I mentioned before, it's a we thing. Stay focused on the conversation, even if it's virtual, even if it's like this, no multitasking, or at least not much. Have a goal and a plan. Invite next steps. If there's a 1/3er and a vibe and a reason to do so, take the initiative to follow up. Without following up, nothing happens. Would you agree? Like, there's got to be a follow-up, or as I like to call the FU, right? It's all about the FU. Right? Nothing great happens unless there is the FU, which is often on us. All right, ask great questions, focus on a target market, and create and use your elevator speech. I'm going to talk about these things lightning fast now. But ask the right questions, get the right answers. This tends to be what students ask me questions about, is how do I start a conversation? Because it shouldn't just be small talk, like idle chit-chat. There could be some of that in there, as Miriam had mentioned before. But I like to ask very substantive questions when I meet people for the first and even the second time. is it doesn't have to be all of these questions, but I just want you to get a sense of the types of questions. So often if I meet somebody for the first time, I might say, Hamza, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, Hamza, very nice to meet you. Can I just share a quick story? It's a Rutgers story, and I don't know if you go to Rutgers, but this just happened. And I might just share a quick story, point, story, application. I might ask, what type of work do you do? If it's academic, I'll say, are you a student? Really? What's your major? What year are you in? What company are you looking to work for? What are your career endeavors? So you can see how, I won't go through all these, but you can see how all of these questions are either geared towards business, or I can flip them and gear them towards academia. Notice how they're all open-ended. And these are questions, I typically ask questions that I would like whomever I'm speaking with to ask me right back. So if I'm asking Hamza these questions and he says, how about yourself? After he answers them, we're probably on the road to one-thirderville, right? Because it's collaborative, it's back and forth. And if I like him, I'll say, I really love what you're saying. You sound like a really bright guy. What are some ways I can help you? So and there's Dr. Max, how can I help? Or whatever questions you like. But you see how this is a bit of a footprint? So it doesn't have to be these questions per se, but I want you to understand that they're open-ended, they're very, very targeted, and they're also questions that, wouldn't you want somebody to ask about you? Something like that. Open-ended. All right, I'm just going to say this. Target marketing is target market as it relates to you is your career endeavors. So are there target companies or target organizations that you would like to work with or for, or work as an intern with? So if you can be really specific in terms of industry, profession, company name, demographic, location, and you put that out there as you're speaking to people, you're more likely to make those connections. And certainly it's relevant on LinkedIn as well. Make sense? Be really specific about your target market. Just don't say, I'm looking for a job in the philosophy space. That's very philosophical, right? But it's not really good marketing, hence good networking. Be very, very specific. Industry, profession, market segment, niche, dynamic, demographic, geography. And you can express it through this. So Miriam experienced this on both a midterm and a final, as memory serves. This is my variation of the elevator speech, which I call the peace statement. The elevator speech, which I call the peace statement, which I find business people even struggle with, let alone students, which is why I share it in my classroom. So my favorite moments in my Rutgers classes is when students master this, and then they go out and they go to the right places, say the right things, and meet the right people, and they come back and they say they landed an internship or a job or whatever, and then they forget that they have a fear of public speaking in my class. That's a pretty good day. So let me talk you through the peace statement, and this is something that you could apply today if you wanted to. So I made it up only about, 22 years ago. So this is probably about as old as you are. PEACE stands for Profession, Expertise, Environments, Call to Action. Yes, it's an acronym. Profession is who you are and how you help, or what profession do you want to pursue and how do you want to help. Expertise, 2 or 3 areas that you have some smarts. Environments is your niche or target market. I mentioned that before. And your call to action is your ask. So I'm always looking to meet or be introduced to blank. And this is what a piece might look like. So this is an example of what mine might look like. Now, I'm not saying memorize a script, right? Script is maybe the first level of learning. I don't have this memorized word for word, but conceptually, I can be very, very conversational with something like this and express my profession, expertise, the environments I want to work in, and then my ask. So look at this, and you can kind of follow the model. So if I have 30 seconds or 45 seconds to share something, this is perfect. Or if I'm in a conversation, Sammy, this could be just a back and forth. So Sammy may say, well, what brings you here? What do you do? And like I had said before, like he said in the intro, well, I'm a speaker, trainer, coach, author, and I box. My firm is called Knockout Networking. All I do is help sales producers become better networkers and grow their business. How about yourself? Well, what's your background? Well, my expertise is in the areas of network marketing, referrals, and recruiting. See, expertise, those are my big 3. target market or environments. Almost all of, well, I should have said something else, but right now I should have said. Right now, I'm focused on working in the insurance and financial services industry with companies like Morgan Stanley, and right now I'm interested in meeting regional directors with Aflac. Any advice on connections like that would be great. So I just landed Aflac as a nice client. So now I'm talking about that as I'm networking. As an aside, I lead a national networking group called, wait for it, the Networking Group. And in my own networking groups, which I've got communities all over the country with leaders that are there, I start to share companies like Aflac because I know that I'll get more introductions and I'll end up generating more business. But I also do the same thing for them. So that's your peace statement, something like that. So at any point, if you want to create one and email it to me, I'm happy to have you do that. I'm happy to critique them because to me, it's not just cool stuff to say, it's a marketing plan. The peace statement is a marketing plan of deciding where you might go, what you might say, and with whom you might say it. What questions do you have about the peace statement?
How do you make sure that this doesn't become like a script and is more organic when you're meeting someone?
Yeah, well, it may start off as a script, right? So it's good. Like I don't have this memorized, but you want it to be fresh language, and you just want to have it down conceptually. You just want to know conceptually what your profession, your expertise, your environments, and your call to action is, and just be able to, just know that in fresh language. So I like to suggest that the peace statement is a structure, not a script. It's simply a framework, because you're right, you don't want to sound scripted when you're having conversations with people. But having this down and then not having it in front of you, like if I asked Miriam, I won't put her on the spot, but if I asked her what her peace statement is, she might chime in with something like this, but in very fresh language. Right? A good question. But it's got to start somewhere. That's the thing. But once you have it down, because mine will change. It may not be Aflac in a couple of weeks. It might be something else, or depending on who I'm speaking with, or that sort of thing. Miriam.
I would say it should be concise and to the point.
Correct.
Yeah, just enough for people to get to know you, but not so much that they lose focus in what you're saying.
Yep, that's right. Short, sweet, to the point. Because I can do this without even looking at this. I could rattle this off. It won't be word for word, but it'll sound very conversational. It'll sound very fresh. But it's because I'm only focused on the 4 pillars of profession, expertise, environments, call to action. And this is something you can even put on LinkedIn. All right, I've got a couple more ideas. I want to be mindful of the time and then open it up for questions. All right, so there's different places that you can go to network. I'm not going to cover all this, right? But my favorite is about 3/4 of the way down is professional associations. A lot of students don't know what professional associations are. Those are organizations that are very specific to a target industry, a target profession. So I'm sure there's professional associations in the San Francisco area, Sammy, that are geared towards philosophy, or that are geared towards, I don't know what everybody's majors are, but whatever it is, right? There's gotta be, you ChatGPT that. Focus on your geography, put your major or your career endeavor, and write professional association. To me, those are the best places to network for job search because they're very geared towards your would-be target market. Now, imagine how powerful that would be if you were armed with a peace statement and the ability to ask questions in that room. You'd make some progress. Wouldn't you agree? Right? So that covers the places to go, the things that you say, and ultimately the people that you meet. So it's all about the places to go. So moving forward, you are now officially in my network. So again, if you ever have questions moving forward in terms of your own careers and your own moving forward with your job search, let me know. I'm happy to help you and kind of point you in the right direction. We can get more specific in terms of what your career campaign might look like. All right, there's 4 phases to networking in my world. There's the preparation that you do before the event. There's the conversations or the presentation that you're giving face-to-face during the event. There's the follow-up, the FU, which I like to see happen in 24 hours. or when Tanisha and I decide is the best time to follow up. So I'm connecting with Tanisha, we're 1/3ers, we hit it off, there's lots to talk about. And then I'll say, you know what, it sounds like we should continue our dialogue and discuss the ba. Are you okay if I follow up with you over the next day or so? We might set something up, but I want to be able to do that within 24 hours. And I want to set that follow-up up in the presentation phase. Did everybody catch that? So if I'm networking with Tanisha, face-to-face presentation, I'm going to set the follow-up up in the presentation phase. So now when I get to follow up within 24 hours, I'm just fulfilling what I had already made a promise about. Make sense? That's a best practice. Is set that up in the face-to-face. So now when you follow up or follow through on LinkedIn or through an email, you can do that. But I suggest your FU, your follow-up, is within 24 hours and when you both agree to do so. And then maintenance is staying in touch as it makes sense. Because it doesn't make sense to stay in touch with everybody, frankly, right? And OOSIOOM, I won't ask you to guess, it's out of sight is out of mind. Having a staying in touch strategy, which is not just social media. That's very passive. But staying in touch with email or DMs or even texting, that's much more active, right? Is keeping a collaboration going as often as you think it might make sense with the people in your target market, the people that you like the most, the people that you're that are 1/3ers, the folks that you vibe with, or the people that are most relevant. I won't go through all this. I kind of just did. And the last thing before I open up for questions is when I'm coaching clients, and sometimes when I'm helping students, I help them develop a daily fight plan, something we didn't talk about, Miriam. And it's just a document, and I divide it up into your purpose, writing a 30-day goal. I even give myself points. I love gamifying things. So put your purpose down. What's your 30-day goal? What are your priorities? Like what needs to be completed today, no matter what? What people do you need to create a touch point with? Maybe they're prospective opportunities, people you're waiting on stuff for. Like I applied for this internship, I'm waiting. Centers of influence or people that can influence your networking, projects that have to get done or at least move forward today, and then personal stuff. So to me, personal might be reading a chapter in a book. It might be, doing Peloton. It might be going out to the gym, whatever it is. I don't always get to the personal stuff, frankly, but the other stuff tends to get done. So I've got a daily fight plan, and if you register for my blog, if you want to, at knockoutnetworking.com, you can subscribe to my blog for free, and you'll get a daily fight plan as a fillable PDF. Anyway, what questions, comments, emotional outbursts, blood-curdling yells, yeah buts do you have for me? This would be the interact.
Networking is oftentimes feels artificial.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how to, like what would your advice be in terms of like resolving that and feeling it more, making it feel more organic and natural?
Well, what about it feels artificial?
That's a good question. I guess the vibe usually, like if you, you can sometimes tell the other person is like there's just network, I guess, like they're after their own, like they're doing this for their own benefits almost. Yeah. So I guess.
Well, yeah, I would say know that if you are in a networking scenario, that people that you're meeting are looking for something too. They're looking for one of, if not a combination of those 6 reasons why we network. So they're in search with something too. So I would say top priority, because I know it is for me when I'm in those circles, is have fun. Just have fun. Like I want to have fun conversations and I want to learn something. Like those are 2 of my principles when I'm working a room. And I know it sounds like you need to be the most outgoing person in the world to do this, but you don't have to work the entire room. You just need to meet 2 or 3 cool people that are 1/3ers. And I just look to have fun with those 2, 3, 4 people and learn something from them. Because you can't prevent me from doing those things. You can't stop me from having fun, and you can't stop me from learning. And if I'm doing that, the people that tend to be attracted to me are those that are also kind of fun and also want to learn stuff. That ain't bad, right? So you're peppering some of the science that I'm sharing with the art of just being who you are. So it shouldn't feel forced. Maybe at first it will, but it's like doing a presentation. Like it may not feel right the first or second time you're doing it, but after a while you get into a groove, you find your style. And it's kind of like this as well. So don't make the verbiage sound like mine or anybody else's. Make it be yours, but just follow some of the principles and pepper it in your own style, and it should feel fresher. Good question. Other questions?
Would you say that strategic networking is a good way to do serendipitous networking as well? Because like if you think about referrals, right? Like that's more serendipitous than strategic.
How so?
Because like you're strategically networking with one person, but then they refer you to other people. And those other people have a very high likelihood of, getting along with you. But like you didn't intend to network with those other people in the first place.
Yeah, but
Right.
your hope was to be connected to other people. So that's, I think, rather strategic. Right? There's no randomness to that. Random is you're running into somebody that you didn't mean to, and you have a 1/3 connection. Like think of some of your own friends and how you met them. Didn't a lot of them you meet by accident?
Yeah.
Right? That's serendipitous networking. Right? But the strategy, you're hoping to get introductions and referrals in your networking interactions. Right? That's a good thing. Right? And if you're asking for the right things, those referrals and introductions will be very specific. Like if I meet somebody, I'm just using it as an example, if I meet somebody from Aflac, that's not exactly a coincidence. I'm looking to make that happen. Now it's up to me to connect if I can and showcase my networking chops and see if there's a way that we can collaborate.
Makes sense.
Good question. What are some other questions?
I have a question. So sometimes when we're in conversation with people and they say things that make it awkward, like you don't know what to say, or you would, whatever you think of, what might be hurtful, or I don't know.
I'm
How
not
would
sure
you
I'm
deal with
following.
that? Like, how would you learn how would you learn to be mature enough to handle awkward situations?
Well, give me an example of an awkward situation, because awkward situations happen, and most, like if you get somebody's name,
Right.
or you ask a question that somebody already answered, in which case you weren't listening closely. And a lot of that stuff is just like an apology. I'm so sorry. I know you mentioned that before, or something like that. But give me a specific example.
So I have a friend, and she said that, well, we were talking about music, and then she said, never put on or never talk about Michael Jackson in front of me. And I was like, oh, why? So she said, I had like trauma because of Michael Jackson when I was in the psych hospital. If anybody played Michael Jackson music, then I would feel really like jittery or whatever. What am I supposed to say to that? What do you expect me to say about that?
Right. Well, I mean, that's really interesting. I've never really heard anything like that before.
I know.
Are you
So, what do you do when you're in a situation where you don't know what to say, or if you say something, it might make it bad?
Well, you just be
I
prepared
usually
to
just,
you just be prepared to apologize, because sometimes that happens. With me, if I met somebody that was saying that, I'd say that's really interesting. I've never heard that before. Are you comfortable sharing as to why that happened? And if not, that's fine. Yeah, and I'll just move on to something else. That's where your questions come from. Something like that. How could you know, right? It's something so kind of random, but yet interesting. So I'd kind of want to know where that comes from. It might be a story that they end up sharing, and it may end up being a connection. You may end up saying, I don't have a Michael Jackson story, but you might share something similar. I mean, who knows, right? So you can go with that, or you just ask another question. So that's why it's good to have a few questions, in your arsenal to be able to ask. So I'm so sorry about that. What a strange thing. Well, what brings you to this meeting? Right? What are some things that you're up to? What was your major? What year are you in? What were some of your toughest courses? I mean, you can just pivot.
Yeah, I guess pivoting is definitely the thing.
But to me, that's fascinating. I would lean into that if it were me. But I would say that is really interesting. I'm so sorry about that, but I have to know, where does that come from? I would love to know if you're comfortable. But to me, that's fascinating. So, other questions? There's lots of awkward moments and things, right?
Yeah, in your experience, would you say that most people are looking to network up or network like within their level or down?
I'd say most are probably looking to network up,
Okay.
I would think.
So if you have nothing to offer, then I'm guessing it's going to be much more difficult to network with
It is.
people. Yeah.
It is, but I think I know where you're going. Don't be discouraged if you're networking with older or more experienced people, or people that are further on in their career than you are. That's a good thing. You can still ask questions, and you can still say things like, I'm a whatever major, right? Whatever major you are. And, I'd love to, learn if there's a way that I could be a resource for you. Like, you never know. So don't get intimidated. But I know it's easier said than done, but trying to get intimidated by that, because if you're networking with folks that are a bit older, more experienced, it's expected that you're not going to have that level of experience, right? You're looking to gain that. But if you still put it out there, like Dr. Max, how can I help? And you're still looking to be helpful, you just never know. Often it's a thought that counts. Good. I know I'm pressing up against the clock here. One more question, and then I'll give it to Sammy to close the show. Miriam.
If no one has a question, I had, like, in your experience as a person who's like a professional sort of in networking, would you say you had most of your best networking experiences serendipitously or strategically? So how much should we care about, like, making use of our, like, current network, current, like, places we're in, and like it's sometimes hard to find time for, like, just networking in the cause of networking, if that makes sense. Like, so how much time should we put into maybe an extra like strategically networking? Or
Well, I would say it's important to put time on your calendar, especially now, to be very strategic in your networking, because you're all looking to pursue a career. So the serendipitous stuff kind of happens on its own, like you don't expect it. But to me, I think it's really, so my experience is very purposeful, because I'm building a business. So I'm very particular with my time and where I hang out. I want to make sure that it's really relevant. So I hang out in a lot of places where there's insurance and financial services people. That's my marketplace, right? So that makes a lot of sense. But the same thing online or offline is how I spend my time, is very aligned with some of the clients that I'm looking to work with. So I think it's the same thing for you, is think about what your career endeavors are, internships that you might be looking to land, other opportunities, and think in terms of where you might spend your time. There's a LinkedIn group for everything. I don't know if everybody's on LinkedIn. I know you're on other social media or Medium, but it's a good time, if you haven't already, is to create a profile. You can do it for nothing. And then there's groups on there that no doubt there's a group for everything. Just do an advanced search and find it, and start to practice with some of those folks that are in your career space. You can do that for nothing and just practice, you just never know. Have I made this a good use of time for everybody? Yes, no, maybe so, give me a thumbs up. All right, well, I appreciate being part of your Saturday night, or maybe late Saturday afternoon, depending on where you are logging in from. So thank you for carving out time. I hope that some of this was valuable. Certainly link in with me or reach out to me if I can be a resource to anybody here. Sammy's got my contact information, as does Miriam. I'll turn it back to Sammy to close the show.
Thank you so much for an amazing talk. It was very educational. Before we close it out, there's like 3 questions we ask every guest at here at eTalks. If you don't mind, I would like to ask those.
Do you want me to release the stop sharing?
Oh no, I think it's better if you keep it. It's better.
Okay.
The first question is, what would be the 3 books you recommend to our listeners? 3 books.
Well, first, of course, is going to be Knockout Networking for Financial Advisors and Other Sales Producers, of course. That would be one. You know what? There's one I just started reading called Changing Your Mindset for Good, which is Jay Fenix. That's just how to think of things creatively and how to look at problems, from a solution-based place. And I would say the third would be this won't be very specific, but I would say any book that is written from somebody in your targeted profession that's doing the work that you want to do. Because that is a networking opportunity you can create, because authors love, and I can speak from experience, when people that are reading their book reach out to them, they tend to respond. So look at somebody that has written a book, that's a good book, that's prominent in your target industry, read that, and then reach out to that author, and then you forever have them in your network. That ain't bad.
Good. Thank you so much. What would be 3 movies you would recommend to our listeners?
Oh man, I wasn't sure I was going to be put on the spot like this. 3 movies.
That's a tough question, yeah.
That is a tough one. Well, yeah, I mean, Shawshank Redemption is my favorite movie of all time. Well, you put me on the spot here. I'm just trying to think of movies that you would like, because I've got daughters that are your age. I've got my oldest daughter is graduating from Tampa this year in May. My other daughter is graduating from high school in May. Whenever I recommend movies to them, they don't tend to like them. They like a lot of action stuff. But movie called Michael Clayton with George Clooney is very good. Somebody just talking to me about that. And what's a third? Trying to think. Young person's movie. I just saw a movie called Purple Heart. That's on Netflix now. It's okay, but you might like it because it's like younger person stuff. So
Cool. Thank you so much. And last but not least, what's your favorite color?
blue.
Blue. Okay. Most people say blue for some reason. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yep.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was an awesome talk.
Well, thank you.
It was good meeting you as well. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for carving out time. And Miriam, I really appreciate you and the opportunity.
I appreciate you coming here, Professor Goldberg.
All right. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye. Good night.